In this video, we're going to be talking about the Forgotten Shores, the arc that solidified itself as the best arc in all of Webnovel. So what is the Forgotten Shores? Well, it's a harrowing but beautiful place that's located in the Dream Realm. By day, it's a crimson coral labyrinth that has a bunch of monsters roaming inside of it. But by night, the labyrinth gets overtaken by dark water. And in that water are some insanely strong monsters. And our main character, Sunny, gets dropped right into this place. And just to give you a sense of how absolutely dangerous this place is, it's labeled a death zone in the Dream Realm. And this is where the average monsters are, and this is where the average humans are when it comes to strength. Now, Sunny isn't alone in the Forgotten Shores. He actually has a trio with Nephis and Cassie. Cassie is this blind seer who has crazy dreams all throughout the Forgotten Shores. Her whole reason for existing is just to point them in the right direction and then just get carried by them. And Nephis is an orphan daughter of one of the most popular families in the entire world, although she doesn't have very many abilities. All she has is flames that burn, flames that heal, is an insane swordsman, is a divine aspect holder, has one of the strongest wills in the verse, and of course is super attractive and also super nonchalant. If you want to compare her to someone, you can think of prime LeBron James, because that's the type of numbers that she was putting up in the Forgotten Shores. Oh, in case you actually haven't read Shadow Slave, you also have Sunny, our MC. He's our noble short king cockroach, and his main ability is with shadows. He can send a shadow out to scout for him, and these three crossing the Forgotten Shores is absolutely peak. So now you're probably wondering, why are they even crossing the Forgotten Shores? What's the reason? Well, it's to find a gateway, which is a portal that lets you go back to the real world. So while they're on this hunt to find the gateway, they run into some absolutely ridiculous situations. That leads me to my introduction into the Carapace Scavenger, which is the absolute Elden Ring boss that they have to constantly fight across the Forgotten Shores. It's this 2.5-meter tall, weird looking demonic crab creature, and no one at their level should be able to take one down, but they were actually able to take out dozens of them all across the Forgotten Shores. And this trio just kept on traversing the Forgotten Shores until Cassie told them where to go. In a vision of hers, it said to go west, so that's exactly where they went. And eventually they ran into one of the best parts of the Forgotten Shores, which is the Soul Devouring Tree. Now, if you played any Souls-like game, you probably recognize that some of these things that I'm mentioning are directly from it. And that's why you love this story and this arc as a whole, is because they take the best parts of a bunch of different stories and combine them into one. Just like today's sponsor, and that's Moonquill. And they want you guys to check out Black Market. It's this lit RPG isekai. The premise is that a previous crime lord got reincarnated into this new world, and using all the skills from his previous life, he carves out his own share in the market. So if you like good storytelling, an amazing plot, and a system, you should definitely buy it using the link in the description, or you can search it up on Amazon. Again, thank you to Moonquill for sponsoring this video. Now back to the Soul Devouring Tree, we see Sunny, Nephis, and Cassie approach this tree. Without even realizing it, they get stuck in a mind hex, and this is where we really get to see Guilty 3, the author, show off his amazing writing skills. Not many authors can capture exactly what it's like to have your mind playing tricks on you, to not be able to trust yourself, to have an unreliable narrator. But the big G3 pulls it off really well. Now you might be wondering, how exactly did they break free of this epic mind hex? Well, Sunny quickly climbed the Soul Devouring Tree, became the only human in history to kill a great devil with a single strike as a sleeper. From that great devil, he received a drop of ichor, which he proceeded to drink, and then became the heir of Weaver, which is an entity that rivals the gods themselves. Afterwards, he went back down the tree, received a vision from Cassie, which he remembered and then forgot, and then remembered and then forgot again. And then while maintaining his sanity against the Soul Devouring Tree, he was able to convince Nephis and Cassie to build a boat in secret, because they actually didn't want to leave the tree because they were stuck in that mind hex. He was then able to convince those two people to get inside of the boat that they made and then push them off away from the tree. And I want you to remember that this was at nighttime, whenever the Forgotten Shores had water filling it with insanely powerful monsters inside, so they had to somehow escape the grasp of all of these ridiculously powerful creatures. And after sailing for a super long time, they eventually found what Cassie saw inside of her vision, and that was a castle in the Forgotten Shores that had other people inside of it, so they weren't completely alone. Now I'd like to point out that the Forgotten Shores is by no means small. In fact, it's actually ginormous and about the size of a continent in real life. Now I'd like you to imagine getting inside of a boat that you and two of your best friends made, and then sailing across the Pacific Ocean to get to the other continents. And if you still think you can do it, that's amazing. Now I want you to add in Cthulhu in the middle of that ocean and see how far you get, because that's basically what they had to deal with to make this journey. Now after finding this castle, they decided to make their way inside, and this is where they ran into one member who'd be joining their cohort eventually, and that's Effie. She's the muscle mommy of the story, and she's also really skilled at fighting and a really talented survivor of the Forgotten Shores, and she introduces them into the general situation of the castle, aka the Bright Castle. In this castle, there's one king, and he's a tyrannical ruler named Gunlog. He rules with an iron fist and has a right hand man named Horus. Horus. She also tells him how there's actually not a gateway inside of this castle, so what they came looking for this whole time actually wasn't here. But they actually determined that the gateway was in the Forgotten Shores, only it was next to the Bright Castle inside one of the most dangerous places, the Crimson Spire. This is a ginormous structure that looms over the Forgotten Shores, and it's well protected by some insanely strong monsters. All of this put together makes an absolutely perfect setting because you have the tyrannical ruler who tries to stomp anyone out from going to the Crimson Spire out of fear of escaping. In fact, he actually gave up on leaving the Forgotten Shores altogether due to there being multiple attempts to escape, but every single one of them ending in failure. And then you have Nephis with her strong will wanting to contend against this tyrannical ruler, escape the Forgotten Shores, bring the people to freedom, all while trying not to die in the process. Now, Nephis creates her own little ragtag group of people who actually live on the outskirts of the Bright Castle. And this is one of the most underrated parts of the entire Forgotten Shores because you have to see how these people live not being behind those protective walls. They get attacked by monsters constantly. They're weak, they're raggedy, they don't have many resources, they're so weak that they can't even kill monsters to become stronger. It's actually a really good and interesting part. There are also some other key highlights of the Forgotten Shores that I really enjoyed and I know that you would really enjoy. Like how we see Sunny actually kill his first person and the repercussions that it has on him. And how we see Sunny become basically crazy and live inside the furthest outskirts inside of the Dark City surrounded by monsters. We also get to see Sunny become stronger in a really interesting and unique way, as well as get some really cool echoes. And of course, while Nephis was trying to take down Gunlock, she recruits some really good people, and this is where we get our main cohort of the entire novel made, and that consists of course Sunny, Nephis, and Cassie, but now Effie and a new character, Kai. And he's this flying archer dude who can always tell when people are lying. And this cohort is absolutely fantastic. You have two characters in particular that make some really good interactions, and that's of course Sunny and Kai. And if you don't know, Sunny can never tell a lie, and Kai can always tell when someone's telling the truth, so it leads to some ridiculous interactions. Now there comes a part in the Forgotten Shores when the entire cohort has to basically abandon the Dark Castle to go and try to become stronger so they can come back and take down Gunlog and his crew. And this little mini arc is so good because not only do you get a bunch of lore drops, but you also get some really cool action scenes, and there's one specific scene that stands out to me the most whenever they're on this journey, and that's their journey into the Hollow Mountains. This is also a death zone at the bottom of the Forgotten Shores, and while exploring an underground mine, they encountered a mist, and this mist was something that if you opened your eyes and looked at it, you would completely lose yourself. After escaping from it, they then found the First Lord, the original owner of the Bright Castle, and we got a ton of amazing lore drops as well as some really emotional and deep scenes. There is just so much beauty on this one journey alone, but it's sad because it's almost put to shame by what happens next. And that's the cohort's return to the Bright Castle, each one being buffed into oblivion after going through this huge arc. They come back in and just start getting it done. First of all, Nephis goes in and challenges Gunlog to a 1v1. And this scene is absolute peak cinema because you have Gunlog, who is surrounded by this gold armor that protects him from basically everything. The man who's lived in the Forgotten Shores for years and years on end, who's been slowly whittled down into giving up ever leaving this place. Versus Nephis, the newcomer with a will that defies reality itself. The one who promises everyone that they can escape the Forgotten Shores. All they have to do is try. And while Nephis is fighting Gunlog, there is another fight that goes on behind the scenes versus Horus and Sunny. Horus is Gunlog's personal assassin, and he's this hunchback who has the ability to make people go blind when he's fighting. After the two fights concluded, we see that Sunny and Nephis both win their 1v1s, but then all hell breaks loose inside the Bright Castle. Enter the Great Culling. The Great Culling is what took place right after Gunlog was taken down, where everyone inside of the Bright Castle decided to split up into different factions, different groups, and try to take each other down, all in hopes of becoming strong enough to take down the Crimson Spire in the end. And you might be wondering, why do they have to kill each other to get stronger? Why are they making their numbers go down? Wouldn't it just be better to have more people? Normally, yes, but in this world, you actually get stronger by killing someone and you take all of their soul essence, and the stronger that you are, the more lethal you become. As an example, I want you to think about it like this. Would you rather have 2,000 farmers, each armed with a pitchfork, ready to fight your war, or would you rather have 500 highly trained, expert Roman soldiers to fight your war? The culling that happens is intense, it's mysterious, it's crazy, it's full of exciting things that happen. I absolutely love the way that it's done. After everything is said and done, we have 500 people remaining on the Forgotten Shores at the Bright Castle. And after every single person arms themselves to the teeth, we get the finale of the Forgotten Shores, the Siege of the Crimson Spire. And I cannot explain to you enough how absolutely fantastic the Siege of the Crimson Spire is. It is intense, it's thrilling, it's action-packed. There's so many moving parts in this, but it's all played out really, really well. And as the battle rages on and everyone is fighting against these nightmare creatures that are protecting the Crimson Spire, we see our main characters have to make some insane plays, like Sunny going up to the top and breaking the seals that protect the Crimson Spire that hides away the gateway. While doing this, he also vanquishes the dark sea that takes over at nighttime. But this had an unintended consequence because the very sun that hung above their heads started attacking them with a soul attack. So the cohort rushed as many people as they could into the Crimson Spire to get away from the sun. All in all, 100 people made it into the Crimson Spire. But this wasn't the end of the Forgotten Shores, because Sunny realized that there was actually a rat who had one plan: to kill Nephis. This is where we see a confrontation between Sunny and a character named Castor, who was this rich legacy clan member. And this battle was short-lived, but it was still a really good fight, with Sunny taking down Castor at the end of it. With that, there was just one last hurdle, one last thing that needed to be taken care of, and that was the monster that guarded the gateway. Now, it was Nephis's job to go up and finish it off while everyone else was escaping through the gateway, and that's exactly what happened. She went up there and started fighting that thing. And with the spire starting to crumble and fall apart, Sunny went up there and joined her in the fight. But by the time that he reached the top, she had already slain the monster, so now it was time to go back through the gateway. But there was just one problem. The way that the Crimson Spire was set up, they had to have a soul conduit, which basically means that one person had to be left behind to make the gateway function. This is where they realized that one of them had to stay behind. So our final battle commenced with Sunny, the man drenched in shadows who survived the Forgotten Shores through sheer will, determination, and luck, against Nephis, the queen of the Forgotten Shores, who rose to the top through her unyielding strength. The battle was not only intense, but also legendary, each one learning each other's movesets as it goes along, each one gaining ground on each other, losing ground, but Nephis seemed to be winning ultimately overall. This became a battle of attrition, each one giving it their all, but somewhere along the line, Sunny started to flip a switch, really turn on the engines, and start to win the battle. Eventually, it ended up with Nephis on the ground covered in blood and Sunny standing victorious. With his victory, Sunny could leave the Forgotten Shores, so he walked to the gateway, the light reflecting off of his eyes. That's when he turned to her and said, "Congratulations. You almost fooled me." This is where Sunny realized that this was Nephis's plan all along. She never intended to cross through the gateway, instead stay behind in the Forgotten Shore and sacrifice herself for him. Sunny was confused on why she would do this, and he wanted to stay behind and help her live in the Forgotten Shore, find another way out where both of them could escape. But Nephis denied his request of staying behind, instead forced him to go through the portal by saying his true name, Lost from Light. This made anyone who said it their master, and had to obey every command that was given to them by their master. So Sunny commanded him to leave her, go through the gateway, and return into the waking world back to his sister. At the same time that he went through the gateway, the sun of the Forgotten Shore ignited one last time and then extinguished. Left alone in the collapsing tower, and with no more light to shine upon her, the beaten, broken figure of Changing Star disappeared into the shadows.